Hello and welcome to Mile High Reefers. I'm Scott Anderson, and this is my long-term review of the Coralife Calcium Reactor. I bought this calcium reactor almost a year ago now, and one thing I don't see a lot of people do on these channels is long-term reviews of their equipment. I mean, we see how they work initially, what we don't see is how they've fared over time. So, as much as possible, I'm going to kind of show some of that on my channel. So, without further ado, here is the long-term on the Coralife Calcium Reactor. I've had this Coralife Calcium Reactor for almost a year now, and I thought I'd do a long-term on it, and I'm actually pretty happy with it. There are a couple minor issues that I'm running into with it that I don't know if they'd be better off on a more expensive calcium reactor, but I'm guessing that they are. The biggest issue I have with it is that I get a buildup of gas, and I believe that's the carbon dioxide, and it doesn't seem to much matter how I adjust the carbon dioxide as it comes out of here, but it still gets that buildup, which means every couple of days I got to come over here, unscrew this, pop that off, and let the gas build up. It's not that big of a deal. I'm down here daily topping my water up. I'm no longer using the auto top off, just for safety reasons. My auto top off failed too many times on me. But the other thing is, it doesn't come apart, and I said this in my original review video of it, but it's hard to clean out because all of that plastic is basically glued together, and I really wish it was on there with some sort of a union fitting so I could take it apart and really clean it. But that's the downside. The good side is I've had this thing for a year. It was $180, which is about half of the cost you pay for any other calcium reactor on the market that would come close to doing what this one will do, and it actually is working pretty good. It comes with the built-in pH probe. You've got your bubble counter so you can see what's going on there. The built-in pump actually works really good. You got one pump which basically sucks water out of the tank, and it does get clogged a little bit, but all you gotta do is pull this, pull that line, blow them out, and that's all I really do. That's where most of my clogs are. Every once in a while I do have to blow into this, and that'll pull a clog out of there. But it hasn't been bad. I mean, that's really once every few weeks to once a month or so. It's not bad at all. The thing I'm loving about the calcium reactor, though, is it's really stabilized my calcium alkalinity. When I first got into dosing calcium and alkalinity, I was using a 2-part solution, and I was trying to really nail numbers. I tried to set myself a calcium level of 450 and 9.3 for my alkalinity, and I thought to myself, it always has to be that. And I don't think it does now. What I've really done is just allowed the calcium reactor to run and maintain the levels. I have not dosed any calcium or alkalinity into this tank probably in about 6 months now. Last time I checked, my calcium was at 380, alkalinity was at 9.3, so I'm thinking about dosing that, bringing that calcium back up and just letting it slowly drift down. But that is one thing I've noticed with this calcium reactor, is it seems to do a little better at holding the higher level of alkalinity and a little lower level of calcium, and I'm kind of okay with that. The other thing is, I'm running this calcium reactor at full bore. You can see I've taken the dripper adjustment off of there, and it just runs all the time, and I've got no real issues with it. It's doing pretty darn good. The other slight change I've made is I've gone to a smaller grain size of aragonite, and I've done that to basically increase the surface area of aragonite that the acidic water can get to break it down, and that way I'm hopefully making the calcium reactor more efficient. A lot of people like this big stuff. They say that by running the big stuff, it's less likely to clog. So far, I haven't had that issue, but of course, I still got a lot of big stuff in the bottom there, which is potentially acting as a bit of a filter for me. But you can see over the course of a year how much calcium I've used. This large aragonite was all the way up to here, so I've used up half a container of aragonite, and then I've topped it off with the small aragonite, and this stuff in the last 2 months has burned down another 2 inches or so. So I mean, I'm ready to add a bit more aragonite to it. So I'm actually pretty impressed with how much of that's burned through. And I mean, that is direct calcium and alkalinity that's going into my system in a formula and level that my corals need. And I'm also getting the micronutrients that were mixed in there, which is another huge thing. Trying to dose micronutrients, from what I've seen, is a dark art, and a calcium reactor is going to get you pretty close to what you need. It's going to get all the micronutrients that were in the skeleton when the coral was alive. The one thing you're not going to get is the micronutrients that were in the soft tissue of the coral. But I suspect that most of the micronutrients are stored within the calcium skeleton itself, and at least it's a good mix and close to what you need. So in my opinion, as far as micronutrient dosing goes, this is probably the best possible situation. So to run the calcium reactor, I've got a Milwaukee dual pressure regulator sitting here, and it's worked fairly well. The only complaint I've had is the solenoid that's controlled by the pH meter has frozen up a couple times. The few times that it's frozen up, I've been able to just turn the pH controller on and off, and it's just reset, no worries. The last time it froze up, I did have to get a wrench out and tap it right there to free up the solenoid, but it really hasn't been too bad. Like I said, I'm down here daily, checking on it, checking my pH to see exactly how things are going. But it's pretty good. The solenoid itself has frozen on me, which is slightly annoying. The pH meter is another. I'm going to try to get this to focus. You'll notice a few of my videos get slightly out of focus, and that's my camera, and I don't know why it just loses focus sometimes. But anyways, pH meter is another Milwaukee. It's the MC122 pH meter / controller, and that thing's been flawless. You turn the dial to the level you want. I've got it set at 6.5, 6.6, right in that range, and it just nails it all the time. When the pH goes up to about 6.7, it'll kick on and it'll run until it hits about 6.5, and it's, for what I'm doing right here with it, it's perfect, not an issue. So I really like the Milwaukee pH controller. I kind of like this dual pressure regulator with controller. I wonder if maybe there's a better one on the market where the solenoid doesn't freeze up. And for a price of $180, I am really impressed with the Coralife 500-gallon calcium reactor. So I think it's done a great job for me. In some future state, when I've big and rich and can afford a new system, I would like to upgrade it to a kind of custom design DIY thing, but for now it's doing great. So thanks for watching this episode of Mile High Reefers. If you like this video, hit the like button, and if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next episode.